to the Pharma Daily. So basically, we are here again with another podcast. And this time we have a huge guest with us today. And I'm very thankful for, him making time for us. I'm just going to give a short introduction about our today's guest. And I'm going to read out the special things about him. So our guest today is Anand Devasthanam sir, and he is a medical director, medical writer from Havas Health You, a company that belongs to US and it's situated somewhere in Boston. Okay, so Anand is a scientist by training, writer by passion, and a storyteller by nature, which you will find out in the podcast eventually. Okay, so stay tuned to us. After having studied immunology and worked in a cancer research laboratory, he embarked on a science communication career, and he has worked in different roles spanning from regulatory, medical writing, medical publications, medical affairs, and now has moved to promotional medical writing as well. He currently works in an advertising industry where he gets a chance to live out his long held purpose of bringing the people closer to science, which is, I guess, the Pharma Daily's purpose as well. We want to bring in all the life science, pharma, and medical graduates, postgraduates together so that we can have some conversations regarding medical sciences, life sciences, and healthcare industry as well. And along with that, he is immensely passionate about mentoring early career aspiring medical writers. So that is why he is taking out his precious time with us on our the Pharma Daily platform. And he's here to talk to us about medical writing and all the journey he has been throughout his career. Okay. So this was the introduction of our guest. And now I'm going to hand it over to Anand sir. And I would request him to give his introduction as well as say hi to the audience. Please, sir, could you enlighten us?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you. I also think that it's a really good initiative that you're taking in order to bring people's voices from the industry to students and others who will really benefit from this. I began my career with, as you had mentioned, with science, and I received my PhD in immunology. Roughly halfway through the program, I realized that science communication is something that I was very passionate about. And for anyone listening in who doesn't fully understand what science communication means, it essentially means trying to bridge the gap between science and people. It essentially means trying to bring people closer to science and inviting people into science and helping them understand the science that impacts their lives. So that's what science communication is all about. And I began interested in developing an interest in this field, but I didn't quite know how to begin a career in science communication. I honestly felt like science communication was more of a passion or a hobby, but I didn't know that you can actually build a career based on science communication. So I began reading about it, looking into it, and I found out different avenues in my own reading and my own research about science communication. And that's how I discovered medical writing. When I read about medical writing for the first time, I didn't know exactly what it was or how I could begin working as a medical writer. But I knew that it had a very good mix of exactly the things that I was looking for. Because medical writing requires a scientific mindset, it requires a passion for writing, and it requires a passion for science communication. So I saw all those qualities in me, and I felt like medical writing could be something that I'd like to pursue. And so I began slowly leaning in that direction. I began speaking with other medical writers and trying to get a sense of what the career was all about. So my first role out of the PhD program was a regulatory medical writing role, and that's how my entry into medical writing began. And I've been pursuing that ever since.
Okay, that is tremendous. And I would like to add, guys, Sir has about like 10 or 15 years plus experience in the field of medical writing. And he has not only worked as a regulatory writer, but also has discovered the non-scientific writing part of the medical writing career, which is very hidden. You know, people think that medical writing is something, someone very serious and only scientists can do the part. But very less people are aware that, the non-scientific writing part of medical writing, especially the people who write for blogs, for medical websites, That thing is very unaware. People are not very aware about that thing. And so, sir, we just want to lighten up with the podcast. We know about your career journey now, but we would also want to take a little sneak peek about your childhood and your your family background, or maybe your personal journey, like non-professionally, what do you do in your life and how things are, because we know that you're passionate about writing. So writing in the sense, is it like storytelling, or like story writing, poetry writing? What do you enjoy the most, and all things about that? Can you just share something regarding that as well?
Well, I used to watch a lot of television while growing up. And one of the things that I really enjoyed watching was a show called Cosmos. It was a show about astronomy. It was hosted by a scientist, a physicist named Carl Sagan.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I did get a chance to read a few of his books while growing up, and his books and his literature and his thought process and his reading made me interested in science fiction as well. So science fiction was my favorite genre of
Okay.
books that I used to read when growing up. I also used to read a lot of medical thrillers.
All
That's
right.
the other genre of fiction that I liked. And I also used to watch Cosmos on television as often as I could. So those things I think had an influence on me, and those were my first experiences of science outside the classroom.
Okay.
I, just like many of the other kids growing up during that time, I interfaced with science only within the classroom, and I thought the purpose of studying science was to pass a bunch of exams, and I didn't really think too much of it. But when I saw science communication being explored in the context of a TV show or a novel or a medical thriller, it just made it so much more interesting to me. And I began to see this new dimension of
Okay.
science. So I think the initial seeds of trying to become a science communicator were probably planted a long time ago without me knowing it.
Okay. So the
So it's
universe was
it's
conspiring behind during your childhood. Things came to you in such a way that you ultimately turned into a medical writer,
I
maybe.
guess that's one way to think of it, because these things only make sense in retrospect. When you look back and try to connect the dots, only then they begin to make sense. So I think that now me being someone who communicates science day in and day out could be connected to the fact that I began exploring science outside the context of the classroom all those years ago when I was reading those books.
Okay, great. So, like they say, to be a good speaker, you need to be a good listener first. Similarly, to be a very good writer, you need to be a nice reader, a very um, stringent reader. So, I guess you developed that from there. And being a reader made you develop qualities of writing as well. I guess that's how things turned out for you. Thank you so much for sharing this childhood memory and what exactly led you to this career journey. Because everything happens step by step. Nothing is like, turns out one day you just get up and aspire to be something else from the place where you're studying, or from the degrees or courses that you're pursuing. So step by step how you became a medical writer, we've understood that. Thank you so much for sharing. So now let's move ahead with the podcast and talk about what is the career like in medical writing. So like, as you've introduced already, that there are two separate kinds of writings if we talk about medical writers. Could you like explain the difference between the two, and then also throw some light on how it works?
Sure, there are actually more than two different types of medical writing.
Okay.
So medical writing is the broader umbrella term used to
Mhm.
describe the communication of science that has a biomedical focus. To look at the different genres within medical writing, you have regulatory medical writing, which we briefly spoke about. The audience for regulatory medical writing is regulators as well as decision makers who sit at regulatory bodies such as the FDA, EMA, or other regulatory bodies located in different geographies across the world. Then you have medical communications, where the audience is scientists and healthcare providers, as well as other allied health professionals, and to some extent, the general public. And then there's health communication, For health communication, the audience is mostly people with very less scientific background, people from the general public. So this is really about communicating health information to people who need that health information but don't have much of a background in science. Then there's health economics outcomes research, which is the fourth type. The audience for that is payers and people who make decisions within insurance organizations, because you have to keep in mind that anytime a new drug is approved or anytime a new drug is launched, the insurance process needs to be aware of that launch and they need to be in a position to help people actually afford that drug.
Okay.
And so
So
health
this is new
economics outcomes
information for
research,
me. I had no clue that HUR also comes under the same umbrella. Okay. Yeah.
it does. It does play a major role in informing payers and other organizations in helping people get access to these medications.
Okay.
And in the fifth, the fifth genre could be promotional medical writing, and advertising is one component of promotional medical writing, where the
Okay.
objective is to promote something in order to launch it successfully within preset regulatory guardrails and within a preset regulatory framework. So when you're promoting something, you cannot just say anything or write anything about an upcoming product or an upcoming device. It has to be said in a specific way. Claims cannot be overstated, and things need to be put across in a way that comes across as scientifically factual. And so that's promotional medical writing. That's another genre that I'm currently exploring. So those are some different types of medical writing, and each of these different types of medical writing have their own career progression, have their own career track. But a general way of thinking about it is that an individual would enter the field as an entry-level medical writer, and then they would go on to become a senior medical writer, and then they would go on to become a principal medical writer, and then they would slowly begin taking on managerial responsibilities, leadership responsibilities. So within some of these genres of medical writing, the next step from principal medical writer would be a managing medical writer. In certain other genres, the promotion would be considered an associate director. So depending on the different genres of medical writing and different organizations that have these different genres of medical writing, the career track and the job titles that one sees during their career progression can differ slightly. But the overall theme is that people begin their careers with a lot of writing, and then it becomes a mix of writing and mentoring, and then it becomes a mix of writing plus mentoring plus administrative activities, and then it becomes a mix of writing plus mentoring plus administrative activities plus finding ways of financially helping the organization grow. So all these other components of being a successful industry professional begin seeping into the role. So writing actually becomes, the amount that someone writes actually becomes less and less if they choose to progress in that career. But people are also, a little more focused on how they want to shape their career. I've come across individuals who say, I don't want to progress into a role that has too much administrative work or too much mentoring work. I just want to focus on something which allows me to write more. And so they
Yeah.
can focus on those types of roles as well. So there is a sense of flexibility within organizations where a medical writer gets to pick how that role is split between writing activities and non-writing activities.
Yeah, I guess people who are passionate about writing, soulful writers, incline more towards, the technical aspect of their work rather than moving to the administrative roles. I've heard this from lots of managers and senior members in my team as well, that they want to stay connected to the tasks that they were doing as their fresher or their initial job roles. So, sir, you have told us clearly that medical writing, which I till today used to think that is a very consolidated term for just two different types of writing, but now I know it's a huge package of umbrella who's having a lot of sub branches which are classification, an entire classification that you shared with us, that there are different category and genres in medical writing. So now I would want to ask you, and of course, you've also shared with us that if somebody is thinking to become a medical writer, just now you shared with us that from the very beginning till the very hierarchically till the very senior positions where they can be promoted to different roles in a particular company or in different companies that they are switching in their entire career. So I would want to ask, and this will also help our audience, especially the students who are pursuing their degrees and different courses, and they are aspiring to become medical writers. As a fresher, if we want to explain a very newbie student who is just listening to our podcast, what does a medical writer do exactly? Like when they're going inside as a fresher, what is the miniature task as a medical writing that they are given? What is that task? Could you just tell us something about that?
Sure, absolutely. Uh, but first, I need to share one of the misconceptions that people have about medical
Okay,
writing. And the
that will be great
misconception,
because you will be breaking more myths. Thank you so much. Please
yeah,
go
and
ahead.
the misconception is that medical writing is all about writing, and this is not true. Writing is is an important component of the role, but communication is the larger component because medical writing is a very service-based activity. A medical writer doesn't write to uh, publish best-selling work. A medical writer doesn't write to win awards or create something which goes viral. It's not really about trying to entertain people. It's about trying to inform people. And so a medical writer is always working for a client who needs help with communication. The client could be focused on discovery. So communication may not be their forte, may not be their strength, and that's where medical writing is necessary. The client may be an entrepreneur. So innovation is their forte, and communication of that innovation may not be their strong point, and that's where medical writing is necessary. So it's a very service-based component, and with any service-based component, you always have a lot of communication taking place. So what does a day in the life of a medical writer look like? It's about having conversations with your client, trying to understand what they're trying to communicate, thinking about what would be the best strategy to communicate that, talking about that strategy with internal team members, seeking alignment with internal team members, and then starts the writing process. So you can see that so much communication has occurred even before the writing process begins. And once the writing process is completed, that's only the first draft. That draft has to be reviewed with internal colleagues. It needs to be finessed, it needs to be honed, it needs to be polished. And then that draft is shared with external colleagues, such as people working in the client's organization.
Correct.
And then it goes through cycles of refinement, repeated cycles of refinement
Okay.
until the final product is achieved. So you understand here that writing is only a component
Mhm.
of everything that occurs.
Okay.
So that's what the day in the life of a medical writer is all about. It's coordinating, communicating, receiving inputs from different stakeholders, assimilating those inputs into the document that's finally getting developed.
Okay. And if we talk about regulatory writing or like aggregate writing, which is generally concerned with the medicinal products, maybe pharmaceutical products, medical devices. So how does that go about?
Well, regulatory writing is very formulaic in nature.
Right.
Regulatory writing relies quite heavily on the use of templates.
Okay.
So when I began my career in regulatory writing, I was in regulatory for roughly 3 years or so. So when I began my career in regulatory, I was using templates designed by the senior medical writers and the principal medical writers.
Okay.
And as I began to grow and evolve in the role, toward the end of my second year and subsequently toward the end of my third year, I was slowly beginning to develop templates myself
Okay.
and share those with the junior medical writers so that they can begin learning how to populate those templates.
All right.
So I think that's one of the biggest differences between regulatory medical writing as well as non-regulatory medical writing. With non-regulatory medical writing, many times you have to start from scratch.
Okay.
But with regulatory
Okay.
medical writing, you start with the template, not because you have to, but because it's the safer approach. There are certain aspects of the regulatory submission which should not change. And there are
Okay.
certain aspects of the regulatory submission which needs to change and be polished and be honed for each specific project.
Right.
And so it's a safer approach. It's a time-saving approach. Industry is all about saving time. So it's a safer approach and a time-saving approach to use templates within regulatory. So I would say that's one of the major discerning factors.
Okay. So, we have an audience belonging to the student class and mostly to freshers and even the experienced professionals who are already in the industry working as medical writers are going to be watching our podcast. So, I want to ask you that if a person is either aspiring as a fresher to become a medical writer versus if experienced professionals who are like 2, 3 years old in the industry are now looking at our podcast, what are the technical skills or what are the things that they should work on, the skills that they should try to build or brush up so that they can get a better career opportunity in life as a medical writer?
Well, for freshers watching this, I think it's important to research the medical writing field as much as possible. Not all
Okay.
medical writing roles are created equal.
Okay.
And so you need to read about medical writing. If you're a fresher, you need to read about medical writing and study the medical writing field to such
Mhm.
an extent that as soon as you see a job description, you must be able to pinpoint what kind of medical writing it is and what other skills necessary.
Mhm.
It doesn't take too long. It just
Right.
takes patience and it just takes a willingness to read about medical writing and to do a little bit of desktop research on your own. It doesn't take too much. All you need is a little bit of help from Google. That's all you need. When I began my career, there weren't as many resources about medical
Mhm.
writing. But now there are blogs, there are free publications, there are papers, there are videos on YouTube, there are articles on LinkedIn. There are just so many resources available to learn about the field of medical writing. And so if you're a fresher, know what you're getting into. Learn about the field of medical writing and learn about it to such an extent that as soon as you see a job description, you can pinpoint as to what exactly that role is about, what the expectation is for incoming candidates, and
Yeah.
what kind of skills the company is looking for.
Okay.
And if you're an experienced medical writer watching this, ask yourself what you want from your career in the next 3 to 5 years. Do you want to continue doing what you're doing? Do you want it to change somehow? And if you do want it to change, what does that change look like? And if you can answer the question on what the change looks like, then you can begin planning as to how you can make that change happen for yourself. Yeah, because I think growth in medical writing is all about evolution. It's about evolution in your skills, evolution in the way you communicate with people, evolution in the way you write. And so for individuals who have some experience with medical writing, if you're happy with your role, then great. You can always hone those skills even further. You can focus in on your niche area and become a much more accomplished medical writer. But if you want something to change about your role, you must recognize that medical writing is a big field, and it's possible to make lateral transitions from one type of medical writing to another. So you must begin thinking about how you can make that transition happen for yourself and what kind of transition you would like to see for yourself.
Okay, that was very deep because after spending 2 or 3 years inside a particular industry, any particular sector that you're working in it, you can actually sit inside the industry and see how many people are doing different kinds of jobs and what all roles they are doing. Sometimes it's like you are enjoying the role that your colleague or your friend or some other sector guy is doing over the work that you are doing, and you're more inclined towards how can I move to that profession. Sometimes even I'm in pharmacovigilance, but I'm told by many of my friends, my college friends also, we all started in PV. Some of them have moved to aggregate reporting, medical writing, and all those stuff, and they're always like, you also should come. This is a more interesting job. We love aggregate reporting more than we used to love PV. But I have like a more different kind of biased love for PV because I started there and I really enjoyed it. But sometimes even I feel that, maybe I should switch, or maybe I should move towards that particular zone. So I think you gave a really deep understanding. If somebody is listening to this podcast, so they should really get this thing, that we are the only one who can decide where we want to go. And I think we should be driving our career, sitting on the driver's seat and deciding for ourselves what we enjoy more. I guess that is what leads to a greater career, when we are enjoying our profession, when we are enjoying everyday activities that we are doing, whether it is PV, whether it is medical writing, and whatsoever profession I guess we are belonging to. So I think that's a deep thought. Thank you for this one. Yeah. So, Len, let's talk about the career opportunities that exist for medical writers. Like we have talked about the classification, different kinds of categories of medical writers. But what are the career opportunities? Is it like they can go only to some CROs for working, or there are government jobs also that they can join, or maybe I guess only pharmaceutical or biotech companies are available for jobs? Could you throw some light on that as well, please?
Sure. So in terms of opportunities, I also think it's important to talk about where those opportunities exist.
Okay.
So traditionally speaking, regulatory medical writing was the first type of medical writing that was created.
Mhm.
Before that, people didn't know exactly what medical writing meant, and the regulatory field is the most closely linked with this term medical writing. So for the longest time, people felt that the only type of medical writing was regulatory medical writing.
Okay.
Um, and that culture exists as well to some extent today. If you look at where the opportunities exist,
Mhm.
I've seen medical writers working in pharmaceutical companies doing regulatory medical writing, as well as
Right.
medical communications type of medical writing.
Okay.
I've seen medical writers working in contract research organizations doing either regulatory or medical communications or even health communication.
Okay.
I have also seen medical writers working in agencies. I'm working,
Okay.
for instance, in an advertising agency.
Right.
I've seen there are different types of agencies for different types of medical writing roles. You have advertising agencies, you have medical communications agencies, health communications agencies, health economics agencies, different types of agencies who like to hire different types of medical writing roles. I've also seen medical writers working in large hospitals
Okay.
where, and that role is kind of at the crossroads of medical writing and science writing because
Okay.
there's research going on in these large institutions. And so there has to be some mechanism, there has to be some method of communicating the advances of those research with the general public. And so I've seen medical writing slash science writing roles exist in some of these larger hospitals and health care organizations and research institutions as well. So these are some of the avenues where medical writers can find employment. These are some of the sectors within which medical writing roles exist.
Okay.
And I think this is important to recognize because sometimes early career aspiring medical writers come to me and they say, I've been looking at roles in pharmaceutical companies and I've only found very few roles and there are just so many candidates. There aren't as many roles. And I always go back to them and say, well, you've looked in pharma, but have you also looked in all these other places? Have you looked at roles in agencies? Have you looked at roles in CROs? Have you looked at roles in research institutes? You just might have to search a little further and dig a little deeper in order to discover these roles. They don't exist only within pharma.
Right, exactly. So now you're actually making it sound like if any person is writing anything related to the medical terminologies or anything related to something medical science, then it is a medical writing job. Now, for a minute here, after listening to you, even I was thinking, then when we are writing narrative in the pharmacovigilance cases that we process day to day, I guess that's also a part of medical writing because it completely consists of all the medical details and all the background regarding the patient. It is also a certain category of writing which belongs to something or the other related to the medical information.
True.
So,
I think it's
yeah.
accurate to say that about 25% of your role is medical writing.
Medical writing, exactly. But
Yeah,
it's not named or titled like that, and it is not
correct,
even
because you don't do
recognized
that full
like that.
time. Yes.
Yes, right, exactly. So we don't even know what we are working on. And then this is the day when I finally realized, ki, okay, one part of narrative that we make every day is also belonging to the medical writing profession, or to the category of medical writing for that.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
for
important
that
to know,
matter.
because if someone like yourself wanted to
Hmm.
transition and become a medical writer, if writing
Yes.
was the most enjoyable aspect of your role,
Hmm.
and you decided that you wanted to become a medical writer, then that 25% of your role, which consists of medical writing, is something that you would talk about during your interviews. That's something that you would talk about as your transferable skills.
Okay, so I actually have a little bit of passion towards writing as a person in personal life also. I have been winning competitions in my school and college life for story writing and poetry writing and everything. So I guess and then I did my degrees and persuasion and courses and everything in pharmacy. The eventually led to pharmacovigilance, but writing has always been my cup of tea. And nowadays how things happen with me, if somebody shows me a piece of writing, only just looking at the piece of article or looking at the piece of paper, I can tell, see, you have used four different fonts. You have used there's no exclamation, there's no this is the grammar you're writing wrong. So I can just look at the piece and I can just tell ki, okay, this is wrong. Even when people send me their resumes, I have to reply to them that, okay, you're using so many different fonts. They don't even realize it, but when I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is something that you're doing wrong. So I am very much inclined towards not only medical writing, but even anything, any piece of writing that is available in front of me. And of course, I also feel now that there is a lot of medical writing that we do day in and day out. Okay, so happy realization to me. Let's get back to what we were discussing. So I would want to ask you now that we know how medical writing works, what is the classification, what are the different genres, we know the job roles that we can do as freshers, as experienced professionals, and everything. But if we talk about the future, okay, and why I'm asking this, I would like to explain it a little bit. Like we have Chat GPT, Perplexity.ai. Now we have another AI in India named Kratrim.ai. So all these AI tools are now just, you give a prompt, you click on send or you click on enter, and they just start writing. And you should look at the speed they write. If you're working on Chat GPT 3.5, it will be a little bit slower. He'll think like a human. He'll take 2 minutes to write. But Chat GPT, the premium version, oh my God, you're looking somewhere else and the entire article is like printed in front of your eyes. So, not that it is so good at writing and it will be, affecting the medical writing, but with the coming up of all these AI tools and everything, and see, it is not hidden from anyone that students nowadays are doing homework from ChatGPT. College going students are, making assignments, their thesis with the help of all these AI tools. So, where do you think the future of medical writing is gonna go? And where can you see it in the next 5 years? What can happen in the next 10 years? What can happen? What do you think?
Well, I think AI is going to be a very important tool for medical
Okay.
writers. A lot of people say that AI is going to replace medical writing, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
Calculators have not replaced accountants.
Yeah.
If you need financial planning, you still need to go talk to a person. I mean, there are certain apps out there, there are certain applications out there which seem to take the place of a financial planner, to try and help you plan for retirement or college education or anything like that. But people are still people, and people like to
Yes.
communicate with other people. There's a sense of security in having to go speak with someone and ask them about, this is how I'd like to live my financial life. This is how much money I need to put away for college. This is how much money I need to put away for retirement. This is the kind of savings I need in my fixed deposit, etc., etc. And so, just like how a calculator or a software has used accountants be more efficient and better at their job, AI is going to help medical writers do less of the writing and have more of the face-to-face human interaction. So,
Okay.
to give you an analogy,
Hmm.
taxes used to be filed by hand
Yes,
years
manually.
ago.
Everything was manual
Yeah,
at the
line
time.
by line, it used to be filled out by hand.
Yes.
and each number had to be calculated manually, and then those had to be done. So this gave accountants very less time in order to have conversations with the client.
Right.
The client would come in with this very specific request, the accountant would have to do it, and that was the end of that.
Right.
But if you allow like a calculator or a software or some kind of a software suite in order to handle the technical aspects, the accountant now becomes an advisor,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So likewise, a medical writer can become an advisor with the help of AI. A
Okay.
medical writer can advise clients on how to tweak their communication strategy, as opposed to spending time on talking about whether this sentence is good, that sentence is bad, whether this is, whether the tone of this paragraph is good, whether the accuracy of that thing is okay. These are all important conversations and considerations to be had, but AI will allow medical writers to transform into advisors.
All right.
And just like how, calculators have helped doing taxes faster,
Mm-hmm.
software suites have helped with financial planning faster, AI is going to help hasten the speed of medical writing and
Okay.
transform medical writers into advisors who can have who can have deeper strategic conversations with clients.
Okay. Okay. I never thought it like this, in this way. And thank you so much for giving me this line. I'm gonna steal it away from you. And every time somebody's gonna question my profession or question medical writing, that is AI gonna take away this? So I'm just gonna use the same line that you told me today. That calculators have not replaced accountants, so nobody's gonna replace PV or medical writing as well. And I would like to tell all the listeners and all the audience of this podcast and my entire channel on the Pharma Daily, all of you who have been boggling me with this question, is AI going to take away all our corporate pharma jobs? Is AI going to take away medical writing? Should we pursue a career in this or not? Sir is here to answer today, and he has, like, I am very satisfied with the answer, and I am very convinced with the answer that you've given here today, that I also believe that human intelligence and the human experience, especially in terms of medical sciences, medical knowledge, medical experience, cannot be replaced by just a machine or software or an AI tool. That's what I used to believe. But I didn't have such good lines and examples like you've given down today. And I don't think people can argue much after listening to this. So thank you so much for explaining it with such a precise example, which I don't have any counter to tell. Maybe people will be writing down some comments for us, and we will be having to reply for that. If they can come up with some counter ideas on this, but I'm quite convinced that it works. It works for me well. I'm satisfied with the answer, and I guess you would be having some more examples, that could simulate to this similar situation, where AI cannot replace the human world or the human population working on sectors like these. Um, yeah. Okay, I'm very happy. So, okay, now I don't have like more questions for you. So I would like to, come down to a closing end towards the podcast. But before we stop talking or pen down, I would just want to ask you two last questions. One thing I want to ask is how happy you are in your career, how personally satisfied you are in your career, how does it make you feel, as you are in like the most senior or one of the very senior positions that you hold in your career today, after years of journey, after years of hard work, smart work, everything combined together, and your childhood conspiracies, your qualification educationally, everything helped you become what you are today. But how do you feel and how proud you are being a medical writer? And how do you think the profession that you choose was the perfect one for you, or you would have taken some other road for yourself?
Happiness is something which you need to measure over a long period of time.
Okay.
You cannot determine happiness levels based on how you feel on any specific day.
Okay. Fair enough.
Happiness is an aggregate report and not an isolated data point.
Okay. Thank you for talking in medical terms.
Sure.
Yes, then a pick.
So
Yes, then a pick them and then move it more and suggest it more on YouTube. Thank you so much. Yeah.
so you so when I reflect on what my medical writing journey has been, I'm very lucky and very fortunate to say that it's been great.
Okay.
But you also have to realize that every professional goes through days where things are amazing.
Mhm.
We go through days where things are kind of neutral. We go through days when the job is boring. We go through days when the job is not exciting, annoying, or we even go through days where we just say that, maybe I should resign.
Okay.
So everyone goes through these different types of days, which is why
Okay.
it's important to give yourself time to grow and give yourself space to estimate whether or not you're happy. Because if you ask yourself on a daily basis, am I happy with the role? That answer on a daily basis is going to change.
Right.
But if you ask yourself at the end of the year, what was the past year like? Am I happy with this role for this past year? That's a more accurate way of asking the question and then using the answer to make career decisions. People jump to career decisions very quickly because one bad day
Mhm.
and they feel like they made a wrong career decision. That's not necessarily true. Even the person, even someone who is doing their dream job has a bad day.
Right.
That doesn't mean that
Definitely.
they need to change their dream. It just means that they need to forgive themselves and give them more space to improve.
Okay. That's very honest. Thank you. And the last question for today's podcast would be that I want to ask you, for the audience, for the freshers who are aspiring to become medical writers, or the experienced professionals who are listening to our podcast, and everyone who's benefited from today's podcast after listening to all the knowledgeable insights that you've shared today. What is your end message to them? What would you want to communicate through the channel to the budding medical writers? What do you want to say? Because you're sitting at a position on the top of the pyramid where you're looking at so many hierarchies that are on sub levels or levels below you, especially the juniors, the new scientists that are coming, maybe writers, maybe scientific writers, whatsoever. What would you want to say to them?
Well, I think a good message to share would be that you have to be purpose driven in a medical writing role. There's a huge difference between having medical writing as an option versus having medical writing as a focused goal. If you want to enter the medical writing field, then success will be yours as long as you keep medical writing as a focused goal. But if you keep medical writing as an option that you're considering along with all the other career options that you have in mind, that the fact that you have it an option as an option is going to become very clearly visible to the hiring manager.
Okay.
So, if you are qualified, you have good communication skills, and you're interested in writing, and if the hiring manager is looking at two candidates, one, both of them equally qualified, both of them great communicators, both of them very passionate writers. One of them has a medical writing as a focus, and the other one has medical writing as an option. 9 times out of 10, they're going to go with the person who has medical writing as a focus.
Right. Of course.
So that's the only message that I'd like to provide. If success in medical writing can be yours, will be yours, if you come into it with that sense of focus and not keeping it as an option.
All right.
Yeah. Also, a few years ago, I began sharing some of these insights on YouTube by making short videos. So if you are an early career aspiring medical writer who doesn't know much about the field, then feel free to look at my YouTube channel. Hopefully, that will
Could
be
you
of value to you.
Could you please name your YouTube channel, guys? Please do subscribe to his channel as well. I have been to his channel, and each of his videos have been really fruitful and have helped me design this podcast. When I was sitting down and writing down questions or topics, what I would want to discuss with him, after watching his videos, I realized, okay, what a great personality I'm going to, invite as a guest on my podcast. Only then I realized when I watched his video. So I would recommend everybody to subscribe his channel as well and go through all the videos that he has made. Of course, from each and every video, you'll be learning some or the other thing that you've never heard about. Seriously, it happened with me as well. And even in today's podcast, sir, you have told me so many new things. I guess the podcast for the channel will help a lot. Of course, your time, your efforts that you've made today. But as a personal learning for me as well, as an individual, I have learned so many things about medical writing, which I had no clue about. So it was wonderful talking to you. Please tell your channel name. And we are also going to share the link below in the description box for Sir's channel. So do subscribe and follow him. So please, can you tell us about your channel more?
Sure, if you just search for my name on YouTube, then you'll find the channel.
Oh, great. And we'll leave the link also so that you can directly reach there. Okay. So, thank you so much, sir, for this keynote that you have told us at the end. Of course, I am sure that people would be moving to your channel as well. People will be subscribing, they'll be staying with you. And I'm going to be staying with you. This is our very first podcast that we have, made together. And I'm very lucky. I'm very thankful that you made out some precious time of yours and gave it to us and put a tiny date for us on your calendar, which is very, very fruitful for me as an individual, for my audience, for all the students here in India who are planning to become medical writer and having doubts in their mind because of AI, especially because everyone is like, oh my God, AI is going to take away my job. Why am I even going into this profession? So everyone has that doubt. I'm sure if they watch the podcast till the end, they're going to get answers to all their stupid questions and all the myths that they're misconceptions that they're building in their mind, listening to some or the other, people who just say rumors out there. Sitting in their college canteens or something like that. So, thank you so much for everything that you've said today. And it was really great talking to you. And as I said, this is our only first podcast. We're going to make many, many podcasts because talking today, I have 10, 20 more doubts that I would want to discuss on the same platform with you and come up with more podcasts, more detailed way so that we can, decode the medical writing profession even in a better way. I think this was just the introductory part. This is the first top layer of the cake, I would say, just the icing that we've discussed today. And I have understood from today's podcast that you have so many deeper levels to share with us to, enlighten us with your knowledge. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.